What's up, ADBL? We're back for videocast number 2. Gonna be looking at some prospects. What's going on with prospects this spring for each of our teams. Gonna look at a couple guys making impressions one way or another. Some guys with injuries, some guys who are really tearing it up. But Yahoo or YouTube only gives me 15 minutes, so here we go. We're gonna get cracking on these pretty quick. First off, just gonna look NL East. Braves got a couple guys who are really on fire. Freddie Freeman's knocking the crap out of the ball. Still not much power out of him. Don't know if that's ever going to come. I don't see it in his swing, but he's hitting the ball really well this spring. And another guy who's actually a Diamondbacks prospect, guy named AJ Pollock, outfielder. Been playing some center field this spring. He doesn't have about 300 pro at bats so far, even though he was drafted back in '09, just because he's had a bunch of injuries and everything. But he's looked really good, hitting over 450. I think as of right now, and Kenny Towers was really impressed with him. Said he might even be up to the majors in September this year. So looking good with him. Moving on to the Reds, he's got a couple guys who are just ready to be in the pros right now. Matt Dominguez, third baseman from Florida, really hitting the ball well, showing some power as well. And the one thing that prospectors question about him is whether or not he's going to hit enough. His defense is really good. He's got some good power. He's shown that off. He's just got to be able to keep making contact, and he's been doing so far in the spring. So let's see if that continues all year. And then another guy who's not going to get any playing time with his current team is Yonder Alonso, actual Reds prospect. Just doesn't have anywhere to play. He can't play left field. He can't play third base like he did in college. And there's a guy named Votto down there up in Cincinnati who's got first base locked down, I think. Looking at Corey's team, the Mets. It's hard to ignore Bryce Harper, first pick of last year's draft, hitting like 350 or so right now. I mean, doing against major league competition, showing they can hit. He's gonna absolutely destroy low A ball. If they do end up sending him there, he's gonna be in high A probably before May, before June at the latest. I mean, he's just outstanding hitter, and he's probably gonna hit 35 home runs this year as an 18-year-old playing pro ball. It's crazy. Another guy who's all but got a rotation spot locked up is Kyle Drabeck up in Toronto. Gonna probably be their number 4 starter. And he looks like he's gonna be pretty good. Not as good as Dad was, but good strikeout numbers. Not really remarkable in any department, but he is pitching in the AL East. So you have to temper expectations for him at least for the first half of the year, so as he gets accustomed to playing really good talent night in and night out, unlike he's been doing at Double and Triple A. Then the last NL East team, we got the Phillies. Got two guys going way opposite directions. Obviously Don Brown, I'm sure most of us heard about it. The hamate bone, wrist break, whatever it was, had surgery on, and he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks, and probably another 2 to 3 weeks before he's back into any kind of game action, and probably 6 months or so before he sees any power come back. I ain't gonna be a long recovery time before he's back to being close to what he was this year, and he made a lot of progress from where he was before. So I mean, he may not even see the majors until maybe September this year. Another guy he's got Craig Kimbrell, who had a rocky first outing here in the spring, but he's done really well, battling back for that closer spot down in Atlanta. And it looks like him and Venters are gonna split time to start the year, and then depending on who emerges in that role is going to be able to take it over full time, probably around June, July, somewhere in there. Moving on to the NL West, we got the Diamondbacks, who also has a third baseman who's absolutely crushing the ball. Lonnie Chisenhall hitting way over 500. He went 4 for 5 today, I think. Got a couple home runs, couple doubles. Really just impressive, and looks like he'll be up in Cleveland probably before midseason. And D-backs also got a closing prospect who's trying to lock down that gig here in spring training, Jake McGee down in Tampa. That bullpen's just wide open, and it looks like he's got a good shot to be able to come out and at least be in a Drew Storen-like role where he's pitching 8th or 9th inning pretty much anytime they need him, and then transition that closer role towards the middle to end of the season full time. As for my team, the Rockies, a guy who's been real impressive even with a position switch is Brett Lawrie up in Toronto. He's moving to third base this year and just really, really been impressive with the bat. Hit a home run a couple days ago, doubling, stealing some bases, and from what I hear, playing some really, really good defense at third base, which was the question and reason why he had to move from second base. But his bat will more than play at third base, so that's not going to be a problem at all. Another guy that I've got Jerry Sands out in Los Angeles, first base outfield type, who's really raking right now, hitting for some power. He's got decent athleticism. He's going to be able to play left field if the Dodgers need him. And right now they've got Xavier Powell and I forget the other guy's name. Got a platoon out in left field that isn't much of anything right now, and he could definitely take over that left field role by midseason, or maybe even step in at first base if Loney can't make any kind of progress from where he was at last year. As for the or our Dodgers, he's got a couple of left-handed prospects who are been really impressive so far this spring. Andy Oliver and Zach Britton. Oliver up in Detroit, got some time last year. Was rushed a little bit, but he'll probably start in AAA this year and be ready. They're going to have a really nice rotation with Verlander, Porcello, Oliver, and then Turner, who we'll get to in a minute. Been really, really all impressive this spring. And then Britton up in Baltimore, probably just like Oliver, going to start in AAA just because the Orioles have so many starting pitching prospects and recent graduates who have talent and are ready to pitch right now, and Britton's just going to be stuck down there until they have an injury or something comes up where he's needed. Looking at the Giants, the final team in the NL, he's got one of his own, Brandon Belt, who's been squashing the ball all spring long. Probably going to be a first baseman. I don't think he's going to be suited for the outfield. Aubrey Huff's already shown that he can play the outfield, so whenever it gets to July or so, probably, we're going to see Brandon Belt get up with the Giants and just be able to produce. Not going to hit a ton of home runs, but he does have 20-25 home run pop. So he's going to be ready sometime soon. And Giants actually got pair catchers who I want to talk about real quick. Jason Castro down in Houston, who actually had the ACL, MCL tear. Going to be out a while, probably all year, actually. So that was a big loss. He gave up a first-round pick last year to get him, so that's a big letdown. And then also, got up in Washington with the Nationals, Wilson Ramos. Has actually hit a little better than expected this spring. Looks like he's probably going to be the starter for the Nats when they leave camp for the regular season, so he'll be able to contribute and be up and ready for him. Moving on to the AL, we've got the Red Sox with a couple guys. One of them who's really come out in the spring and helped out his stock a lot, Tim Beckham, former first-round pick of the Rays, had been trailing off in the prospect scene, but really has hit well this spring, and then also played a pretty good defense at shortstop, from what I understand. And then Jacob Turner, the other Detroit Tiger guy who I mentioned earlier, just really looking good. But he's only 19 or 20 years old, not ready at all. And they definitely don't want to Porcello him and send him to the majors at this point without any experience above high A. Looking at the White Sox, he's got Jeremy Jeffress down in Kansas City now. Relief prospect who's got a huge fastball. He'll be ready to step in 8th inning role to set up Soria this year. And then another guy who hasn't got much publicity at all is Charlie Blackmon, an outfielder for the Rockies. He doesn't have anywhere to play right now for the Rockies just because the outfield's so crowded, but he'll probably start this year, maybe AA, probably AAA though. And he's got some power, got some speed, pretty good all-around player who could force his hand for the Rockies. Looking at the Yankees, got a pair of pitching prospects as well who have one's been really impressive, one's been a little rusty this spring. Dylan Bettens is actually a Yankees prospect who's got some monster heat, even as a starting pitcher. He'll be a good one to watch. He's not quite as polished as Manny Banuelos, but he'll be there pretty soon after him. And then Jared Parker who's coming back from Tommy John surgery. Just hasn't seen any game action in a year and been roughed up a little bit so far this spring, but reports are his stuff's still there, so I'll just need to get back to pitching a little bit more. Moving on to the Rays, he's got a guy who we've been looking at for a while, Desmond Jennings. Uh, Once again, Rays bring in some guys. He's not going to be able to play to start the year, uh, but he does still have that speed and some power that he can tap into. He's not going to be Carl Crawford all over again, but he could hit 8 to 10 home runs and still 40, 50 bases once he gets the chance. And a guy out in Colorado, Chris Nelson, who's a shortstop, second baseman, who's fighting for a spot with Eric Young Jr. For that middle infield utility, starting second base maybe role. Always been a good hitter, just never been able to stay healthy, so we'll see if that can hold up this year. Looking at the Tigers, he's got a pair of Kansas City prospects actually. Mike Montgomery, left-handed pitcher, who's been pretty outstanding so far this spring. Looking at maybe a September call-up for him. Definitely be up and ready to go probably for next year. Then a young catcher named Salvador Perez, who looks like the catcher of the future now that they've moved Will Myers out to the outfield. Ned Yost, or not Ned Yost, forget the guy's name, but their GM, Dayton Moore, has been really, really impressed with Perez so far this spring and says he's almost major league ready even at 19 or 20 years old. The Royals here in the ADBL have a couple guys who are not top 100 guys, but who have really impressed so far this spring. One's a guy that we've been waiting to talk about, and that's Josh Vitters, a guy who's got a ton of bat speed, ton of power, and he's really starting to tap into that this spring, and maybe he'll be able to continue that for this year. And then he's got an outfielder from Minnesota named Joe Benson. He's close to being major league ready. He's got power, he's got speed. He had a really good year this year. He's got to do a little better job of making contact, getting his batting average up and everything, but he may be able to be ready to slide in to that kind of utility outfielder role towards the middle end of this year, and definitely be able to take over in the outfield next year if he's needed at that point. Looking at the Angels, one of the better farm systems in the ADBL, he's got obviously Eric Hosmer in Kansas City, who's really, really hitting the ball well, starting to show that power a little more as well, which is what scouts have been waiting on. He's always had that raw strength, but definitely starting to show it in the games now. He had a monster shot that I saw a couple of tweets on that said that ball left the park in under about a second and a half, so just absolutely rocket. And then a guy who got traded to Rays this past offseason, Chris Archer, who still a little raw with his command. Got a big fastball, some good breaking stuff, all speed stuff, but got to shore up that command. He's walked about as many as he struck out this spring, but he's also struck out about a guy in inning. So he's obviously got the stuff. Just got to learn to harness it a little more. Then our final team, we're going to look at the Rangers. Got a guy who's actually a Rangers prospect. Most of y'all probably haven't heard of him. Neil Ramirez. I got clued into him by Jason Parks. I follow him on Twitter. But he said Ramirez was up to 96, 97 this spring. Still a little ways off, but definitely a guy to keep your eye on. Good starting pitching prospect who could stay as a starter. If he does, that just helps out the Rangers so much because they've got so many low-level starting pitching types who just have to build up those innings and get a little closer and a little older and mature a little bit. And the last guy we're going to look at is Nick Weglars for the Indians. He's ready to take over in left field or first base if Laporta can't hit, or if Brantley doesn't show he can hit as well. He'll be in AAA to start the year. He's another guy who's got to cut down on the strikeouts and make sure he can stay on the field, but he's got a good power bat and could be helping Cleveland as soon as June or July of this year. So it's a little prospect wrap up for us here in the ADBL. Hope you enjoyed it, and let me know what you think.